Change is an inevitable part of life, and yet, for many, it feels like an unwelcomed guest, one that brings discomfort and resistance. It's a paradox that we find ourselves in. On one hand, we know that growth, progress, and success often require change, yet so many of us hesitate when it's time to embrace something new. But why does change provoke such a strong aversion in some people? Is it merely a fear of the unknown, or does it go deeper into the core of human behavior? Let's explore the psychology behind people who hate change and why this fear might be more than just a phase, but rather a deeply ingrained response. The human brain is wired to seek stability, a natural instinct rooted in survival. For those who resist change, this drive for certainty and predictability becomes a source of immense comfort. Psychology says that when confronted with change, the brain perceives it as a threat, triggering the fight or flight response. This makes sense in evolutionary terms. Our ancestors needed a stable environment to thrive, and any disruption could have posed danger. Today, this instinct still influences how we react to shifts in our lives, whether it's a job change, moving to a new place, or even altering daily routines. The brain's discomfort with unpredictability, fueled by fear, keeps us stuck in the familiar. A big reason why people resist change is the fear of losing control. When you change something in your life, whether it's your career, relationships, or even your habits, it's often tied to a loss of control over your environment. Psychology shows that when we feel we are no longer in charge of our circumstances, we become anxious. The need for control is rooted in the brain's desire to feel secure and competent. The fear of change in this context is really about feeling powerless in the face of uncertainty. People who fear losing control may struggle to adapt because they feel that change removes their sense of agency in their own lives. Moreover, change can stir up feelings of insecurity. When faced with unfamiliar situations or challenges, it's easy for people to question their abilities or fear they're not up to the task. This is especially true when the change involves stepping into a new role or learning something unfamiliar. Psychology says that this is linked to our self-esteem. When we feel unsure of ourselves, change can feel like a threat to our self-worth. Over time, this negative self-assessment can reinforce resistance to change, making people less likely to try new things or take on new challenges. The brain tends to protect its fragile sense of self by avoiding situations that could lead to feelings of inadequacy. Another key factor in the fear of change is the attachment to the past. People often find comfort in the known. Past experiences, relationships, and routines offer a sense of familiarity and safety. Research shows that this attachment can create a strong emotional barrier against change. When people become too comfortable with what they know, even if it's not serving them well, they fear the unknown. The emotional investment in what's familiar keeps people in a cycle of avoiding change, even when they might benefit from it in the long run. Lastly, change often requires vulnerability. Embracing something new means stepping into the unknown and risking failure. Psychology shows that vulnerability is inherently uncomfortable for many people, as it exposes weaknesses and uncertainties. People who resist change may avoid it because they perceive vulnerability as a threat to their emotional well-being. The brain, therefore, works hard to protect the individual from these uncomfortable feelings, reinforcing the avoidance of change. By seeing vulnerability as a negative outcome, people may never experience the growth that comes from embracing change. In conclusion, the psychology of people who hate change isn't just about stubbornness or unwillingness to adapt. It's rooted in deep-seated fears, insecurities, and survival instincts. Our brains are wired to seek stability, control, and comfort, which makes change feel threatening. But understanding the psychological triggers behind this resistance can open the door to growth. The more we recognize these fears, the more we can find ways to cope with and eventually embrace change. After all, change may seem intimidating, but it's also the force that drives transformation and progress. So next time change feels overwhelming, take a moment to reflect on the underlying psychological factors at play. It's not about eliminating fear, it's about learning how to navigate it. Take control of your mindset, and you might just find that change isn't something to fear, but something to embrace.